All right, everybody. We are back with Off the Bench. Brandon Carney alongside Maddie Kroll after another weekend of playoff football. Man, we are dwindling down here to the end of not just the playoffs, the NFL season. Feels like it's just going so fast. But Maddie, what did you think of the games this weekend? I mean, we had some, honestly, they weren't great. I feel like 49ers Cowboys there was some excitement there just because of the defensive battle and things were pretty close. But how did you feel about the games as a whole this weekend before we get into each one individually?
I think I enjoyed them. I was talking to Thomas, our producer, before the show. This was the first weekend I felt like I could actually relax and watch football. And then even just preparing for the show today, I wasn't having to rewatch 10 other games that weren't in network for me. And so I feel like I love the playoffs. However, I saw your tweet about this means that we're dwindling down and no more football for a while is coming up. I'm not ready to face that fact yet. So I'm just living in pure ignorance bliss over here.
We are ignoring it. It's funny because it comes up so quick, right? Because you go straight from, at least multiple games in a day or in a weekend or whatever. And then you hit the Super Bowl, like the lead up to the Super Bowl, the 2 weeks going into that. And you're like, man, that's the last game. Shit. It comes up somehow so fast, even though it is a progressive lessening of the games each week. It still feels like it just hits you right in the face. And
no, it does.
It's very offensive. I keep seeing ads for the Pro Bowl and stuff, the Pro Bowl games, which awesome change, by the way. Pro Bowl games and then the Super Bowl. I'm just like, we are really reaching the end here. And then we are going to reach full off-season speculation mode, which is just its own beast. I mean, not 2 hours ago, I saw, could the Patriots trade for Aaron Rodgers? Because it'd be a very Belichickian move. And I'm just like, we can't be at this point yet, but we'll get into all that speculation in a couple of weeks when we no longer have games to talk about. For now, we still have some games to talk about. So we'll dive into the playoff games of this weekend. Then we will talk about the games that are coming up this upcoming weekend, the AFC and NFC Championship games. And then we'll actually get into something we haven't had a ton of time to do because there's been a lot of games, the end of season awards. So we haven't done this just yet, but we will be giving you guys our picks for rookies of the year, coach of the year, defensive player of the year, offense, all that stuff, all the major awards. And you guys let us know if you agree, disagree, and we will have some fun with it. So first of all, let's talk about Chiefs versus Jags. So this one started out a little scary here for some Chiefs fans and for Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes got rolled up on, high ankle sprain, looked horrible for the first few plays afterwards. I mean, the guy couldn't even hand the ball off. And even as the game progressed, he was kind of doing this little hobble thing, even just handing the ball off. But ultimately, he's Patrick Mahomes. He got through it. Maddie, what did you think of that when that happened? I mean, what was your first reaction? And how do you think they kind of adjust for this now next week?
Initial reaction, I was like, uh-oh, here we go, Jags. This is your opportunity. And then we had Henne come in and do crazy things. What was a 98-yard pass down the field for a touchdown?
Yeah.
What? For me, I feel like I'm trying to think of how to say this. The Jags came out and did, I feel like, what they could do. I think where they went wrong is they should have capitalized on that. When Patrick did go down, even when he came back, like you said, he was hobbling around, he was on one leg. Why are you not rushing? Mm-hmm. Why are we still in a soft zone where we're letting Travis Kelce eat all day in the middle of the field? That's what I don't understand, is there wasn't really any adjustment throughout the game, even when you were given an opportunity to kind of take off. But I felt like it was a decent game other than that. I really did. Good for the Jags for covering at least.
Yeah, and I really think the Jags had this one if it wasn't for that Jamal Agnew fumble. I really, really do.
That
I mean,
fumble.
They're on the 9-yard line. The guy's halfway in the end zone, more or less, and just gives the ball away. And it sucks, too, because a guy like Agnew, he was a bright spot on the Urban Meyer Jags. And he was now, he's a guy that's just kind of reaping the benefits and like, oh, wow, I can, maybe take a little lesser of a role than I had last year, but I'm on a team that's in the playoffs. Like, this is awesome. And he's been such a valuable member of the return game as well. But Of all the guys for that to happen to, it was so rough, and I was bummed out. I think you and I were both rooting for the Jags. I think, truthfully, most of America was rooting for the Jags. I won't call it a David versus Goliath kind of game, but it was a game where, you have these heavy favorites. Really, only the fans of that team are going to be the ones rooting for them. Chiefs have a Super Bowl. No neutral fan probably cares too much to see them win it all again. So the Jaguars were, kind of the darling left in the playoffs everybody was rooting for. They had a shot. Unfortunately, they blew it. But we will now get the Chiefs next week against the Bengals. But as for the Jags, I mean, what a season for the Jags. We kind of did this for the Giants last week, kind of, not eulogize them, but a little bit, kind of give them their props for a season that came to an end. The Jags, I think people thought they would take a step forward this year. People had that belief in Doug Peterson. I don't know too many people that had them in the playoffs. I remember I personally, even as much of a Jags truther and supporter as I am overall, I picked the Colts to win this division. And then I probably, if I had to make the actual standings, I would have picked the Titans to come second because, defending champs. But I thought the Colts would be the team in this division to take the step forward, not the Jags, not have this monumental shift for Trevor Lawrence and the entire team. What a season for Jacksonville.
What a season. I think this speaks a lot to what Doug Peterson has done. And I think the one thing we can all bank on is we'll probably see them again in the playoffs next year.
Yeah, I mean, they came back and won this division kind of out of nowhere. They didn't seem to have a chance to do that with, like 2 months or so left in the season. They made an incredible push. And now, you look heading into next year, these other teams, of course, we have a whole offseason left to go, but these other teams in that division are not trending well right now. I mean, the Colts are on the hunt for both a head coach and a quarterback, so they're going to have some drastic changes. The Texans are probably going to get their, quote-unquote franchise quarterback, or at least the guy that they're going to try and work with for the next few years, whether that's Bryce Young or CJ Stroud. And then the Titans are just – they are the ones that I think are firmly kind of trending the wrong direction. I mean, the quarterback situation is up in the air. They were rolling with Josh Dobbs here at the end of the year. I know Ryan Tannehill was hurt, and Derrick Henry's not getting any younger. This whole bruising team with Derrick Henry and then the defense to match and Tannehill that just kind of can, steer the ship the right way with that being their identity. I don't know that we're going to get another season of the Titans that were the 1 seed in the AFC last year. I don't know that this year was just a blip on their radar. I feel like this might be the first step in. All right, you guys got to do something new. You might have to blow it up, or at least a mini blow up, a little baby explosion, something to get yourselves going.
I agree. I think blow ups in their future. They need so much help, but even just in the core, in the trenches on both sides of the ball, offense and defensive lines, they're just not physical enough. They just can't hang. So I think that they're headed towards a rebuild. But who do you build around? Henry?
It's a really good question. I mean, do you build around how old is Derrick Henry? He's around 30, somewhere he might be 30. Do you build around a 30-ish year old running back? And it's such a tough thing with Derrick Henry. It's the same argument you get in fantasy football as well is how long are we going to bank on an aging running back? But also this aging running back is quite literally built different than any other running back we've ever seen. So maybe he does have a little more longevity than someone else because of the way he plays. He's such a strong guy, built like an actual linebacker.
He's a refrigerator on legs.
Yeah. Is he going to conform to the age standards that we've, come accustomed to from guys who are honestly half his size? So I don't know. It's a really tough question you have to ask yourselves. I think as of right now, I don't expect them to get rid of Henry, but they're probably going to have to kind of just build around him in the short term the best they can and, hope to fall into another playoff spot. They were close this year, even with, all the trials and tribulations they dealt with. I just think they have a lot of questions they have to answer, whereas the Jags don't really have those questions. The Jags are just kind of, hey, keep taking these steps forward with the guys you have. You have almost everything in place. It's just time, now you just have to kind of build off of that. And I think they will do that. So I'm very optimistic for the Jaguars.
Me too.
Next down the line, we've got Eagles versus Giants. So the Eagles kind of manhandled the Giants a little bit. A lot of it. 38-7. This was the game that kind of made me not sour on the weekend of the playoffs, but the one that made it feel like, okay, these games weren't necessarily as good as I was hoping for. You have two division rivals, right? A Giants team that comes in the game after beating the Vikings, who, as much as we called them frauds, it's still impressive to win that game against a 13-win team when nobody really thought you'd be in the playoffs at the beginning of the year. Got the momentum, potential coach of the year, potential comeback player of the year. Danny Dimes is looking good. and you get just shellacked, like absolutely rocked. The Eagles did everything and anything they wanted to with this team. What were your takeaways from this game? I mean, my big one is that Jalen Hurts does not look to be bothered by this injury whatsoever. He may be feeling it, but he's not showing it.
No, I mean, I think that I kind of saw a few things that indicated he may not be 100% just because they went back to that old college style offense where they were spread out in the zone. But for me, my biggest takeaway was how much more physical the Eagles were on both sides of the ball. What really threw me, okay, Jason Kelce, we know he's an anomaly. He's amazing. He's throwing out pancakes with one arm. Who does that? I don't know. But then you have A.J. Brown literally catapulting defenders through the back of the end zone. I want to know, are the Eagles going to put on a blocking clinic? They're like blocking university up in Philly. I don't know what's happening, but guys, even Devontae Smith, I even saw throw out a couple of blocks. And even just being an OU fan, Grant Calcaterra, I hope I said his name right, tight end. That kid, I don't think ever touched another defender unless it was initiated by them, was throwing out blocks. So I think that was my biggest takeaway, was how physical this team came out and played. And I think that it's a real indicator of how important that bye week is in the playoffs, how important seeding is in the bye week. And I know some people argue, team can fall off, but especially where this team was injured going into the playoffs, being able to have that week of downtime and recovery, I think made a world of difference. And Lane Johnson maybe have limped around first quarter. After that, he looked like he was never injured at all. And I think that was one of the biggest game changers. But I mean, they came out and had 268 rushing yards.
Yeah.
What?
That is just doing anything you want to that defense. And also, I just want to address, because it's the funniest storyline maybe in professional sports to me right now. What does Boston Scott have against these poor New York Giants? Boston Scott is, by all accounts, a mediocre, literally third-string running back. This man has 19 career touchdowns. 11 of them are against the New York Giants. I understand they play the Giants more than a lot of teams because it's in their division. It's still not proportionate to equal that number. It is just absurd to me. The fact he found the end zone in a playoff game, and he found the end zone before the game was even out of hand. I believe he was the score that made it 21-0, which, you're starting to get to that point, but that's not, he's in for garbage time and he was the 38th point. No. I don't understand. It feels like the Eagles are almost just trolling the Giants at this point. They're like, we got Boston.
We're going to send Boston out.
He's going to find the end zone, and you know it. And the Giants are like, yeah, we know it. Fuck, all right.
You called that too last week on this podcast. You said that.
It feels like the easiest money in sports right now is Boston Scott anytime touchdown if they're facing the Giants. I don't know what his contract situation is, and to be quite honest, it's not relevant enough for me to look it up right now. But if he's on this Eagles team next year, I really hope that we get more Boston Scott touchdowns against the Giants. But yeah, you mentioned the bye week. So I think the bye week can be helpful and hurtful depending on the situation. The Eagles were going to be nothing but helped by this bye week because they were not only banged up, but they came into this game having lost 2 out of their last 3 because of, having Gardner Minshew and no Lane Johnson and all that. So there's no momentum to be lost when that's the case. If you're a team that's kind of finding its footing at the end of the year, which maybe you're not competing for the 1 seed if that's the case, but if you're a team that's kind of been grooving all year and then you have to sit down for the bye week and wait, that might not be ideal. But for this Eagles team, there was no downside. They had no momentum. They just wanted to get healthy, and they got healthy, and they came out and pushed the Giants all the way around the field all afternoon. It was really incredible to watch. It was really incredible. Kenny Gainwell, 112 yards. Miles Sanders had 90. Boston Scott just being mean as per usual. So this sets up for a very, very good game next weekend, and I'm very excited to see this team go up against the 49ers.
I'm so excited for this upcoming game. Yes.
It's going to be a good one. So the Giants, I mentioned how we kind of, gave them their props last week because, I mistakenly said that they lost last week, but we gave them their props because they beat the Vikings and just, wow, nobody really expected that. But just to kind of reflect fully on their season, because this was the week in which they actually lost, Brian Daboll, incredible turnaround. Honestly, a lot of similarities here between the Giants and the Jaguars. They finally get that head coach that comes in and just immediately turns things around and honestly is probably a year ahead of schedule. I think the quarterback situations on the two teams are drastically different. I think we all know Trevor Lawrence's upside is much higher than Daniel Jones, but the two teams kind of similar seasons. Nobody had any expectations, and here they come, win a playoff game, and who knows what's going to be in store for next season. What do you think the Giants do next season? Do you think this is the start of they're going to build on this next year and maybe win, I don't know, 2 playoff games, get to a championship game? That's looking pretty far ahead, but what do you think is kind of the future for them in the immediate future?
I think that it solely depends on how they're able to finesse this offseason. What's going to happen with Saquon? How much are they going to pay him? Are they going to try to pay him a little bit up front and extend his contract to give him a little bit of leeway? What are they going to do with Daniel Jones? I mean, you have Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley, both who I feel like were a big reason why that team was able to make it to the postseason. But you have a lot to fill out. I mean, you need to get Daniel Jones another weapon down the field. You need to get a good offensive line. You need to get a defensive line who can stop the run, because apparently you can run all over the Giants. I mean, there's a lot of things that they have to fix, but I think that they're on the right path with Daboll. I hope that they keep him and, just build here. I don't know where they start. But you do have a good few guys that are coming back from injury that were on the offensive line. So maybe they kind of let that stay lax, especially now that we know that Danny Dimes can run.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting to see what they come up with. I do think that they need some type of big receiver to get down the field and get down the field fast.
Yeah, it's funny, the team that eliminated them from the playoffs and the team that is obviously in the division and that they'll be dealing with forever is kind of the model for probably.
Well, I think Brandon will be back in just a second. I think he's coming back now.
Hi, sorry, lost the good quality camera. We'll have to deal with this one. Yeah, the other one decided to
You're so beautiful
for some reason. Look, hey, listen, it's nice and gray, but look, thankfully my camera's at least passable over here. Oh God, it's green. Okay, we're good. We're fine. Anyway, back to what I was saying. I was saying that the Eagles are kind of built like what the Giants are going to want to do here going forward, right? Like they have a quarterback who at least at first was known primarily for rushing, and now they're going to have to just build around that and build toward his strengths. You mentioned going and getting a big receiver. I mean, the Eagles went out and got A.J. Brown. Who can the Giants go and get? It'd be really nice if the Giants could go out and get a guy like, I don't know, this guy Kenny Golladay that played for the Lions. I think he was a pretty good big. Oh, he's on the team. Oh, sorry. Yeah, he just disintegrated for no particular reason. Don't really know what the deal was with that, but whatever. Yeah, I think the Giants, they have, some pieces here. It's just a matter of getting receivers that aren't Isaiah Hodgins and Richie James and Darius Slayton, who are all good players in their own right. But it reminds me, as a Patriots fan, much of our situation where it's like you've got a bunch of good potential number twos and you need to go get that number one. It's unfortunate too, comparing the Giants to the Jags again, their overachievement. The Giants, I bet you they really wish they had that version of Evan Engram back, don't they? I mean,
100%.
I mean, 100%. They had to suffer with whatever version of Evan Engram they had before, and
I forgot about that. That has to sting a little.
Does have to sting a little, but look, at least Daniel Bellinger's not bad, so maybe he can be their guy. But yeah, just a funny parallel to me. But yeah, I think the Giants, this was an incredible season for them. Maybe they go out and get Odell. Maybe he pushes them over the edge. But no, this is the start of some moves in the right direction for the New York Giants, and I would not be surprised to see them back in the playoffs again. I don't think anybody should be. With Daboll as their coach, Daboll is their guy, and it'll be fun to watch their progress now.
I agree.
Now we've got probably, what we thought would be the best game of the weekend. Bengals defeating the Bills 27-10. So first thing I want to point out is for the Buffalo Bills, they are just reaching kind of new heights of disappointment now. Last 3 seasons, 2020 lost in the AFC Championship game against the Chiefs. 2021 lost the divisional round at the Chiefs. 2022 lost the divisional round at the Bengals. For a team that feels like it's been built for the Super Bowl for the last 3 years now, for them to have not even gotten there yet. What do you think is their main weakness, and what do you think led to them coming up short this year?
I think that the biggest weakness is the offensive line. We watched that happen over and over again. The run game was non-existent. When you are playing in the snow, for me, the biggest eye-opener was, why did it look like the Bengals were out there ready to play and the Bills were slipping like they were ice skating? I mean, they couldn't even stay on their feet. I don't feel like they were prepared. I think that they put too much of the win game scenario in Josh Allen's hand. I think that he needs somebody other than Diggs to throw to if you're going to make him drop back that many times. And they also need an offensive line that can keep up. They have to develop that run game. I don't know if it's play calling. I don't know if it's because the offensive line isn't great with run blocking. But either way, they're going to have to figure that out. And then, of course, they went out. They got Vaughn this past season. They brought him in to be able to come off the edge and apply that pressure, and we lost him. So I think they need some type of heavy hitter like that. Whether it's Vaughn who comes back, I don't know. But they need somebody on defense that can initiate to get home and take advantage. I mean, we were all talking about, we were worried about the Bengals offensive line coming into this. And the Bengals offensive line was to start the show outside of Joe Burrow. I mean, they just were. But to be able to not capitalize on guys who have not been in there, who don't have that mojo going with the rest of the line, that's almost disheartening. But for me, I think that they need to focus on what's happening with the run game and how they can improve that and take some pressure off Josh Allen. I think that's going to help him the most.
Yeah, I think, you look around, people are saying this was the best performance from the Bengals O-line as a whole that they've had maybe all year. And that is not what we expected coming into this game.
I do think that a lot of that had to do with Joe, just because he was getting the ball out so quick. I mean, that ball was in his hands and gone before he could even twist to get the seams. It was unreal.
Yeah, I mean, and I did notice early in that game, he wasn't necessarily just kind of standing in the pocket. He was stepping up. He was mobile. He was getting to spots where he was comfortable throwing the ball. So that is part of it. He made it a little easier on his line, not having to just protect the same area all day. But regardless, the fact that these backup linemen were able to show up and even do that is impressive to me.
It is.
You had Jackson Carman coming in, and he was not projected to be a left tackle in this league. And now you've got him throwing dudes into basically the fourth row. Like, there was an incredible clip of him taking a Bills defender, I don't know who it was, and just chucking the man. And I'm like, this guy, maybe you should have gave him more of a look at left tackle, the position that he played actually in college. And it makes things really interesting for the Bengals now, because they may not have to pay Jonah Williams going forward, and they may have some more money to do some other things with this guy, 23, just turned 23. This game was on his birthday. Jackson Carman could be legit. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was his birthday. Jackson Carman, just a really nice performance from him, and makes things very interesting for the Bengals here going forward. The fact that they were able to eliminate what I thought would be the game-changing factor of this, that being, I thought the Bills would be able to generate pressure with or without Vaughn. Obviously, it was without Vaughn. And they just didn't. Joe Burrow was able to carve them up. He was able to do whatever he wanted, and the Bills looked outmatched all day. You got the Joey franchise shirt rolling for our
check it out, heavy.com
viewers. Really, yeah, beautiful shirt. Joey's that guy. I mean,
he's that guy.
He really is. And you go into Buffalo, right? You go into Buffalo and you play in the snow better than the Buffalo Bills do. Not a great showing for the Bills, and it does make me nervous for the Bills. Like, is this just a less heartbreaking repeat of the Bills of the 90s, where they lost 4 straight Super Bowls? They're not even getting there, but they're suffering kind of the same disappointment. They have Super Bowl expectations. They're going to have them every year for as long as Josh Allen is their quarterback, which should be for the next 10, 15 years. But it's not looking good. You need to get over that hump at some point. Cause right now, like, I think as of a couple of weeks ago, most people's top quarterbacks in the league, they were going to have Josh Allen above Burrow. I think Burrow's kind of pole vaulted Josh Allen a little bit after this game. Yeah. Like, there's kind of a clear cut top 3 quarterbacks, in my opinion: Mahomes, Allen, Burrow. Order them how you want, but I think Burrow's going to be a little higher on people's lists after this game, as he should be. I mean, he looked poised. Joe Burrow feels like this generation's Tom Brady. As much as I don't want to put those expectations on him, the comp is just too obvious. The swagger that he has, the pocket passing, just proficiency that he has. He feels like this generation's Brady. He's never nervous, and he always looks so in control.
I like that you said this generation's Brady too, because I think that he takes what Brady did, but then he adds his own element. Like, he's able to be mobile. He's able to get outside the pocket and make those second reaction plays, which is amazing. So I completely agree with that analogy.
Yeah. And one thing I wanted to ask you about too. So Stephon Diggs, after this game, apparently tried to leave the stadium very, very quickly after the game. And he was stopped by Duke Johnson, who, for those of you who didn't know, Duke Johnson was on the Bills. Duke Johnson's on the Bills practice squad. He successfully got Diggs to stay and, be with the team or whatever had to be done after the game. But yeah, Diggs tried to bolt his way out of there. It seems like he is, miffed by what happened, and you can't blame him. This is a disappointing end of the season, but Maddie, this isn't really the first time we've seen Diggs have some level of attitude or temper issues, I guess you'd call it. Is this something you're worried about? Do you think that this is anything, or is this just, emotion of the game got to him and we can let it go?
No, I think it was just the emotion of the game that got to him. I think that he realized once he came back and had that little spat with Josh on the sidelines where he was visibly upset, he knew that that's the only thing that people were going to bring up in the post-game press conference. I think that he was trying to avoid a little bit of that.
Yeah.
I think that just the environment was probably high stress on the Bills as much as DeMar was there to support them. I mean, when you tell a guy, I want to go out and win for you, and then you lose, I mean, that's a lot to have to deal with. I think that emotions were just running high. And listen, this is these guys' livelihood. It's their job. It's what they work for. They put their bodies on the line. They literally put their life on the line to go play a game that they love. So losing is not a good time. It's just not. And I think that we do have to be a little bit patient with these guys as they're being frustrated. What did you think about it?
I in a vacuum, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I mean, yeah, guys are going to be emotional after a game like this. You had Sean McDermott come out and say, I don't want a guy that doesn't have those kind of emotions. I don't want a guy that doesn't care. At the same time, I understand Bills fans maybe being concerned because this is kind of what led Stephon to leaving the Vikings. I mean, I think we all know that Josh Allen is a few tiers above Kirk Cousins, so it's not like Diggs has many places to go to upgrade if he wanted to kind of take another, force his way out of this situation. So I don't think it's going to get to that point, but I understand kind of the nervousness of Bills fans. Like, oh man, this was kind of how he got here. So I don't want him to start doing this now that he's here and end up going somewhere else. I think it'll be fine though. I'm not overly worried about it.
One of my favorite takeaways from this game was how everybody was calling out the NFL for saying that they jinxed the Bills by releasing the Kansas City Bills the tickets early. And I love how Joe at the end was like, hope you guys get a refund.
Yeah.
Better start shelling out those refunds.
It's such a perfectly passive aggressive, almost toxic, but not really toxic response.
But with a smile too.
Yeah, it was perfect. He's just like,
so petty.
You're not going to Atlanta. It's all right. Atlanta's not used to having playoff games, so it's not really a big deal. Yeah, I'm not worried about Diggs. Bills have to figure some things out though to get back to where you want to get to, or just to get to where you want to get to.
Yeah.
Or if Josh Allen's going to be starting to face this some major criticism if he can't get his team, whether this is rightful or not, to pin it all on the quarterback. We all know that's what ends up happening. So
that's what happens.
We need to get a Josh Allen team into the Super Bowl sooner rather than later if he wants to keep being in this conversation of top tier quarterback in the NFL, because you see how quickly players get turned on. They were talking about trade Dak after the Cowboys 49ers game. And so that's just kind of how quickly people can shift. And speaking of trade Dak, we'll talk about 49ers Cowboys. So 49ers defeat the Cowboys 19-12. We talked about it at the top of the show. Defensive showdown. It was fun to watch. It was, but overall, the Cowboys coming up short yet again. And let's just talk about this off the bat. What was that last play? That was a disaster from start to finish.
Zeke coming out as center and then getting blown up on the spot. I don't know what the plan was there. I really don't. I would love to know what they thought that was supposed to be.
I don't know. And people were comparing it to the Colts play from a few years ago against the Patriots. That honestly, a few podcasts ago, we were talking about that being one of the most ridiculous plays of all time because it was. But I'm like, Pat McAfee actually made a good point because he was on that Colts team. He was like, look, that ball wasn't supposed to be snapped at the very least. We messed up. We snapped it. The miscommunication. This ball was meant to be snapped. This was the play they were trying to run. I don't understand what's going on. Zeke Elliott trying to moonlight as a center now. I understand running backs not going too well for him, but I don't think center's really the move either because he got ran over. The play just never stood a chance. And the fact also it took so long to set up the timeouts and just the time in between, it took forever for it to lead to just a wet fart of a play. I have no idea what to make of that disaster.
Can we get a paper check?
You've got the linemen just out on the sidelines. I guess this is what we're supposed to be doing. We're not going to be involved in the play because you're going to throw the ball immediately and that guy's going to get rocked because duh.
The other thing is you have your running back 2, which should be running back 1. You have your running back 2 who left with a broken leg or hurt.
Right.
They didn't know at the time. He left hurt, right? And then you're going to take your highest paid running back and you're going to put his body on the line. I mean, regardless of whether you're going to win or not, like you still have to come out and compete next season. None of it made sense. To be honest with you, this was the exact reason why I picked the Cowboys to lose. I know the 49ers are great, but the Cowboys cannot game manage. Just the fact of like, we talked about how big of a decision it was to be able to, are you going to go for it? Are you going to punt? Why are you wasting time?
Mm-hmm.
Why does your tight end not know that he has to be going forward out of bounds? I mean, it's just like these little things that people think are almost irrelevant, but they make the biggest when it comes to a playoff game at the end of the game, fourth quarter, that will make you or break you. And we watch them make these mistakes over and over and over again. And so that's why I still was just astonished by Jerry Jones standing by Mike McCarthy at the end of when they were doing the press game, post-game press conference. Wow, words are hard. I was so frustrated because I was like, do you not realize that these little things have been happening for 3 years now? 2 years in a row, you lose the playoffs because of silly mistakes like this that should be micromanaged in practice. I mean, Bill Belichick's one of the greatest. What does he do? He harps on that stuff. Like those details matter, and you got to prepare your guys. And I just feel like the Cowboys, I really do feel like a coaching change is needed for them to be able to make it past this divisional round in the playoffs.
Yeah, you need to establish that culture that those kind of things just can't happen. I mean, Dalton Schultz. Okay, let me say this first because I don't want people to think that this game came down to these plays. Because the Cowboys put themselves in such a poor position already leading into the last drive, especially that last play that
Dak's interception
would have basically had no choice, no chance, regardless what they ran. But like all of these mental mistakes that are just so common for the Cowboys. Dalton Schultz threw that last drive away twice. First of all, he didn't go out of bounds. Second, just lazy catching mechanics. He had plenty of room to get his second foot down, and he just didn't. So you got Dalton Schultz making mistakes. You have that last play design. You have Brett Maher, who, credit to him, at least made the field goals he attempted, but missed another extra point. And before you all say it was blocked, please go watch the replay if you haven't.
He was going to miss.
He's lucky it got blocked because that was going to miss wide left. Like, the fact that you go into a playoff game with a ticking time bomb at kicker when you are notorious for having stupid things cost you playoff games was just fascinating to me. Like, if you go into this playoff game with, I believe they signed Tristan Vizcaino to their practice squad, and he was the guy that they were maybe going to bring up if they went that route. Like, if he blows the kicks, it's like, okay, whatever. Like, the other guy was already blowing the kicks. We did what we could to make an adjustment. They didn't make the adjustment, cost them a point. And then they have other mental mistakes that cost them more points. It's just a bad look for the Cowboys. And all that to say that they're one Tony Pollard injury away from still maybe winning this game. But it just stacks up for this team. I agree with you. I think they need a coaching change. This is the team that I feel like Sean Payton would make the most sense for, but it doesn't seem like they even care to make a coaching change. Jerry's sticking by Mike.
That's what's crazy to me. I would peg Jerry Jones as the guy who would be just faunching at the bit to sign Payton. Like you would think it, and then him paired with Kellen Moore. Like I feel like Sean Payton would want to work with Kellen Moore, and I would be an incentive to get Kellen to stay when we know he's going to get head coaching opportunities. And then you have a defensive coordinator. Maybe he didn't work out as a head coach, but he's doing a hell of a job. I don't understand what Jerry Jones is doing. Get McCarthy out of there. If he got Payton in there, I think that they could turn Dak's situation around, because I know that we talk about the Pollard injury and a lot of people are attributing that to the loss, but to me, it's Dak's interceptions.
Yeah.
Like those were critical mistakes. And especially, I think it was that second one that was it the second one that was in their range? I don't know. Either way, if he doesn't throw those interceptions, I think that they had a better shot of winning. They probably would have won the game.
Yeah. And also, just if you're listening, the guy that asked me last week if I owed Dak an apology. No. Dak played a real defense and, not a Buccaneers defense that, while in the top half of the league, was also rated that way because they got to play the NFC South so many times. No, I don't. No apologies, because as soon as he faces a defense like the Niners, he just completely falls apart. And I don't know when Dak turned into this, but it's not a positive development for his career. Like this is such a different Dak. I do know when it happened. It happened after the injury, but it's like why is your ankle injury like so negatively affecting your decision making? I'm very curious. I would love for somebody to kind of look into that kind of thing, because it happened to Carson Wentz too. I mean, Carson Wentz's downfall isn't just that he's no longer mobile. It's that the passing is no longer as good as it used to be either. And it's from an injury that in theory doesn't have anything to do with your processing and your decision making. It's just maybe some subconscious things that you don't trust yourself as much. The footwork is off. I don't know what it is, but it's not been a good, season for Dak Prescott overall.
What I noticed the most was when they had that injury at right tackle and they kind of had to shuffle the offense. The offensive line has had to shuffle throughout the season, but that second shuffle where Terrence Steele went out and it was right tackle and they had to shuffle around. Ever since then, it was almost like he didn't trust his blind side and he damn sure didn't trust his right side. He was getting out of the pocket and kind of screwing things up. So when you have a quarterback that bails too soon, what happens is the offensive line can't protect you. If you're going this way, you're expecting your offensive lineman to be able to get a hang on that when he's already got his leg back to post up right there to block somebody. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
And that's what I meant by like, he just left too early. Josh Allen does that sometimes too, which he has a crummy offensive line most of the time. But no, Dak, he doesn't trust his offensive line. So what's it going to take? I don't know. Maybe somebody getting in Dak's head saying like, listen, you're going to have to step it up and deal with it. Or maybe the offensive line coming together saying like, hey, what do you need from us? Either way, they're going to have to fix that. But I feel like you get a coach in there that can maybe ease them into it a little bit. Maybe we play call some stuff that's just some easy design throws, little gains here. Don't give them any design runs. Let your two running backs handle it. But I feel like the coach has got to step it up, and then Dak's got to come around to whoever's in there.
Yeah, and it does feel like, we mentioned before, Jerry would be the guy to make this change, because Mike McCarthy, by and large, has been successful with Dallas. Back-to-back 12-win seasons, just not coming together
on
in the
paper,
playoffs.
though.
Right, on paper. But Jerry would be the guy to, like, say, screw the paper, like, we have a chance to go get Sean Payton. I don't care about your 12-win seasons. Let's go get Sean. The fact he's not doing that is very weird to me. Sean Payton is now having his second interview with the Broncos this week. He's interviewing with the Cardinals and the Cowboys. Not in the mix. So I don't know. I think it sucks for Cowboys fans. Not that I really care about Cowboys fans, if I'm being quite brutally honest with you. But for Cowboys fans, like, you're not at blow it up. You're not at the blow it up point.
No, not at all.
You have so many weapons still and so many pieces to make this work. But you have these things on your roster that are so Cowboy-esque and lend themselves to you choking in the playoffs, like not just this year, but next year, the year after. These coaches making weird decisions, a quarterback that's suddenly very turnover prone. Your running back situation is going to be questionable next year. Tony Pollard's a free agent. He broke his leg, looking like 3-month recovery time, actually, which was shorter than I expected, but 3-month recovery. He's a free agent. He could get some money from somebody else. Zeke is still on your books for now.
And he should go.
He should.
Honestly, the amount that they paid Zeke to be able, they used Pollard as a workhorse to get down the field and then let Zeke punch it in. Pollard should go get paid somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know what the Cowboys' answer is. To me, it feels like the Cowboys need not necessarily a hard reset, but like a soft reset. Like they need to go, like we said, make a decent coaching change if they can, but maybe not. If they're not going to go after Peyton, then maybe they're just better off sticking with what they got. But they gotta do something as well, because this running it back next year with this team and just kind of plug in, some guys in at whatever pieces they're losing in free agency, which are also a lot. It's not going to get it done. You're just going to suffer kind of the same things and the same lack of culture and attention to detail that have plagued you for so long.
I do want to give the defense credit though, because they had, we saw for the first time, Brock look like a true rookie in some spots. That pass rush just got to him. I do feel bad for the defense, especially Parsons, because he was everywhere, and you want that win for him, but he'll be back. Can I throw out an off-the-wall manifestation thing that I'm going to try to make come to light?
Feel free.
I would love to see Pollard in Baltimore. I would love to see it.
That's interesting.
Isn't it?
Pollard,
I know that they have a whole poop shot going on over there, but I do kind of think of them as my home team. I would want that. I
mean, basically the only running back that's, locked into their plans for the long term is J.K. Dobbins. And that's just speed on speed with Pollard and Dobbins. That would be fun to see. Just no thunder and lightning. We just got lightning and lightning. You're just going to be dizzy between them and Lamar. That'd be something.
And I know that Roman's gone, but then you have those fullbacks that come into play with the way their offense rolls. And so you don't even need that much of the blocking running back out of that. And Pollard has some hands. Pollard can get the ball. I would love to see it. Anyways,
Pollard going to be one of the most interesting free agent signings for both real life and fantasy football, if we're being honest. Finally, we can get some full-time Tony Pollard. And if Tony Pollard goes somewhere where he's going to be the workhorse back, he may be like a second-round fantasy pick, to be honest. I would not be shocked at all, even late first. So we'll see.
I agree.
We've got that to look forward to this offseason among all of the other narratives that are going to be coming into play. But for now, we will preview the upcoming games. So next week now, Bengals versus Chiefs in the AFC. We've got a rematch of the AFC title game from last year. All of that, all of the nonsense of this NFL season that we talked about all year, just to get the same matchup in the AFC title game. Look, I'm not complaining because it's going to be a good game. I just think it's ironic. Chiefs, Bengals, Joe Burrow, undefeated versus Patrick Mahomes, still accounts for 16% of Patrick Mahomes' career losses. Does Patrick Mahomes overcome Joey B, or does Joey B remain his kryptonite?
I think Joey B stays Patrick Mahomes' daddy. I do. I think that the Bengals are a more physical team. And the Bengals offensively are going to tear that defense up.
Yeah.
I mean, they just are. Also, you're talking about Patrick Mahomes. I don't care what people say. High ankle sprains suck. You're not as mobile.
Yeah.
And like, that's the thing that I didn't understand is why the Jags didn't come and try to flush the pocket, get him out there, because he couldn't move. He was literally hobbling on one foot. And who are you going to bring in? Henny? No. I think that probably what's going to happen is the Bengals are going to come out hot and heavy on defense and rush them home. And then they're just going to capitalize offensively.
Yeah. I mean, this is an opportunity for Mahomes to become even more of a urban legend than he already is, because if he handles that sort of rush that I also agree and expect is coming, and just doesn't show any signs of a high ankle sprain is like the most annoying injury for football and like for fantasy football and all that. Like, you see that shit linger for like a month plus at the very least. It's so irritating. And so the fact that he's just going to play through it, even at the quarterback position where there's not as many cuts, obviously, as a receiver or running back would have to deal with, but still, you're trying to navigate the pocket and react quickly to a guy that ends up in your face when you weren't expecting it. It's probably not going to go well. So yeah, this is Mahomes' chance to prove that he's not human once again, but I think he's human. We saw that he was human against Tampa a few years ago when his O-line let him down, and now sort of similar situation. The O-line is fine, but there's another aspect that could lead to his passing being less desirable than it normally would be. I think the Bengals come out on top here, and the Bengals also, they're so hungry. Like, not that the Chiefs aren't, they haven't been to the Super Bowl in a couple of years as well, but like the Bengals just got there, lost. Like, they have these young players that are going to want to finish the job. Burrow and Chase.
Joe Mixon, he acted like he was just like starved. It looked like they were like, hey, listen, like, we're not going to feed you 3 days before, and then we're going to just hold the meat at the end zone. Like, that's what he looked like. He was just angry running, throwing out blocks. No, I love to see it.
This team is starving, and I think that they get there. I really do. And I'll be excited for the Bengals in the Super Bowl, because I want them to win it all. Like, regardless of what my picks were, I want this team to win. It's probably my favorite team kind of left, as much as I love Jalen Hurts and the Eagles as well. The Bengals have just made a big fan out of me, but we will get to the next game. Maddie, seems like you have some things you're thinking about here as far as who you want to win it all. But Eagles, Niners. Defense on defense, similar to the Cowboys-Niners matchup, just that the Eagles offense is much, quite frankly, better and more organized and more disciplined, as we talked about. Who you got in this one? Who comes out on top?
I'm going Eagles. I've been singing the Eagles praises since preseason, so I can't go against the Eagles. I think that this is going to be a great game. I feel like for the most part, it's pretty evenly matched up. Where I feel like the difference is obviously quarterback position, right? Hurts has more experience. Brock, we saw start to struggle a little bit with that pass rush against the Cowboys, and the Eagles pass rush is just as great, but then they also have a heavy hitter on offense who's going to be able to make just play after play. Like I said, the Eagles are coming out and they're being physical. So I think that this is going to be a very strong physical game, but I think that the Eagles pull it out just because I think we have a little bit more of a known at the quarterback position. And I don't want that to come off as bad, because Brock Purdy, I give him his credit. He's made it this far as a rookie coming in midseason. I just think that, he started to play a little bit like a rookie last game. And I think that the Eagles are going to be able to capitalize on that.
I think the thing about Brock Purdy last game is like, it wasn't even that he was starting to look like a rookie in the sense of making mistakes. It was just that he was forced to play very much within himself. And like things were limited. Things were fast. He had to, playing within that Shanahan system as a rookie, he had to just take what was given to him. And it wasn't a lot being given to him. He couldn't make extra plays by himself necessarily.
Correct.
You had George Kittle making a great play with that crazy catch, but Brock Purdy isn't necessarily going to lead you to that. Jalen Hurts can make plays on his own. And if that's going to be the difference maker, I think that makes a lot of sense. So I'm also going with the Eagles. I think we get Eagles, Bengals, Super Bowl. What a great matchup that will be. Truthfully, any matchup of these last 4 teams remaining is going to be really good. We've got some great teams left. It's not like there's anybody that doesn't belong here. So I'm excited either way. But
I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so last game we watched Sirianni's, obviously his game plan was go out and put up as much points as you can, and it almost looked like he wanted to kind of rest them second half. Do you think we see the same thing here? Do you think that they come out just trying to push the ball as much as they can, as far as they can downfield? Or do you think that they try to run the ball a little bit more, and which I know that they ran the ball, obviously they ran the ball crazy amounts, but I feel like they're going to try to push the ball through the air.
I feel like they try to push the ball through the air too, largely because the Niners have, I believe, still the best run D in the league.
They do.
And the Eagles, as good as their running, system is and how good Jalen Hurts is being mobile, the Eagles running backs aren't necessarily top tier in the NFL. Miles Sanders, solid player. Kenneth Gainwell coming on here. Boston Scott.
Offensive line that they're running
Boston Scott only hates the Giants. So I think they'll probably come out with a mix, but mostly lean toward the pass. Jalen Hurts, again, came out in that game airing it out and looked good. That was what led me to be like, okay, he's not feeling it. Like that shoulder looks fine to me. He's diming these guys up. So yeah, I think they will probably push it down the field, and that'll be kind of the lead part of their offense. And then they'll mix in the run after the fact, or at least secondarily. So it'll be a nice little chess match to get here, because we have probably the 2 guys who are maybe leading for coach of the year right now. And so they're facing off against each other.
Let's get into that. Let's get into that business.
So I took the liberty of ordering these awards on our show sheet in the way that we will go through the ones that Maddie and I more or less agree on first, and then we'll get to some awards where we actually have a few differences. So first of all, we've got Offensive Rookie of the Year. This one, maybe the most open of the awards, I feel like, the one with kind of the least favorites and that could really go a few different ways. You've got Kenneth Walker, you've got Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Brock Purdy, I already said Kenneth Walker. Christian Watson's in the discussion.
Deserves a second.
He deserves it twice. Exactly. He's Kenneth Walker the third. I should say it 3 times. But you've got so many guys involved here in this conversation that I really wouldn't be surprised if it went a few different directions. But Maddie, who is your pick for Offensive Rookie of the Year?
I put Kenneth on there as like a secondary because I was worried you were going to go with Brock, but since we don't really care, I think Brock deserves it. I mean, you come in as a 3rd-string quarterback. Nobody expected him to play. Mr. Irrelevant comes in mid-year and leads his team to now he's going to we're talking about not just the divisional, but the conference round of the playoffs. I know that everything's preseason, but he came out and he didn't miss a beat, which is hard to do in the league.
Yeah, I'm going with Brock as well. And if there was going to be a year for a guy who only played half the season to win Rookie of the Year, it's this year. I like this rookie class, but none of them really set themselves apart in the way that a Justin Jefferson has in the past or a Jamar Chase has in the past. That's why it feels so wide open, because you've got Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, very similar yardage totals. I believe both scored 4 total times this year. Kenneth Walker
they fell off towards the end.
Right. Kenneth Walker got up over 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns, and looked pretty good for the Seahawks. Helped give them that reliable running attack, and is a guy I love, going forward as well. But none of these guys put up world-beating numbers. That's why I think you can take the guy who for 7-8 weeks, whatever it was of the regular season, kept this team as a title contender and continues to do so. Obviously, you can't take playoffs into account, or at least you're not supposed to for these awards. But Brock Purdy, he is the guy that made, I think, the biggest difference, because if he wasn't good, this team, the Niners are not in the NFC Championship game. Like they're not poised to be the number 2 seed in the NFC coming into the playoffs. So I think Brock takes advantage, or should take advantage of the lack of competition. I hesitate to say that, but the lack of standout competition from the other rookies this year. I think he can get this award. And God, could you even have bet on Brock Purdy preseason? Like, were there any books taking you, letting you take Brock Purdy? Yeah, midseason even.
Who's Brock Purdy? I feel like is what we were all saying.
Mr. Irrelevant has become Mr. Very Relevant. And if we had our choice, we'd go with Brock Purdy for Offensive Rookie of the Year. On the other side of the ball, Defensive Rookie of the Year. Again, I mentioned how I put these awards here because these are the ones we agree on. This one, as opposed to Offensive Rookie of the Year, feels like the most obvious award. Like, this is the one where there's kind of the least debate around it. I think we're both on the same page here. It's Sauce Gardner. I mean, the guy has become arguably a top 5 corner already. You don't see that. And just what a year for him. I mean, the cheesehead thing is iconic as well. He had the moment. Just he's been a beast.
What's crazy is I feel like they didn't even utilize him to his full potential. I mean, most of the time he was posted up on that left side and never left, which is phenomenal to be able to have the success that he's had. It just shows his athleticism and how great of a player he is. But I feel like hands down, there's no argument for this. It has to be Sauce.
Yeah, he's the heaviest favorite if you look at the odds really anywhere for any of these awards, and I think rightfully so. AP Offensive Player of the Year. I actually debated this one. And
did you?
I did briefly. I'll tell you why. So we both have Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson, again, is a favorite for this award. Led the league in receiving yards, a little over 1,800 yards. Made that Vikings offense infinitely more dynamic than it would be without him. I can't even imagine what that disaster would be if he wasn't there.
They had us all fooled. We thought they were a good team.
Right,
so
exactly.
Justin Jefferson.
Exactly. Jefferson is what helped fool us. So, okay, so I was looking at the odds just to kind of gauge all the names. And the guy that I'm going to mention that gave me some pause, he was actually like 8th down in the odds. It's Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce was the only other one that I debated putting here. And that's because second in the league in touchdowns with 12 behind Devontae Adams, who had 14. And Travis Kelce, the way he's played this year with Tyreek Hill out of the picture, keeping the Chiefs in the same place that they've always been when people had questions coming into the year, how would they adjust with no Tyreek? Well, here's how they're going to adjust. Travis Kelce is going to be, I hate to say this as a Patriots fan, probably the greatest tight end of all time. And he's just going to do his thing, get open constantly, even though you know he's getting the ball, and backpack this Chiefs receiving game. Like, yeah, would they probably be okay without him because Patrick Mahomes is a freak? They might be okay. But are they going to be elite? Are they going to be the 1 seed in the AFC? I really don't think so. It's just he doesn't have probably the yardage total to put him over a guy like Jefferson. I believe he was just over 1,300 yards, whereas Jefferson, again, 1,800. But it just feels like a guy that if we are going to give consideration to anybody, it feels like what Cooper Kupp did for the Rams last year and will continue to do, is just being that vessel, like the guy that everything moves through in your offense. And again, Jefferson is that too, but Kelce led his team, is the leading receiving option on a team that is possibly going to the Super Bowl. So that was the only
other argument.
guy I considered, but as you could see, I still did stick with Jefferson just because of the Vikings would be non-existent if he wasn't there. I mean, they really would.
It would be bad.
If there was a year for Jefferson to get it, it's this year. He's a guy that people were talking about for MVP halfway through the year. So he should be Offensive Player of the Year. Defensive Player of the Year, last one that we hardcore agree on, Nick Bosa. We talked about at midseason awards. I actually had picked Matthew Judon because he was on pace to break the single season sack record. Another kind of slow second half for Judon that he had last year. Not as big of a fall off, but still not statistically up there with these other guys anymore. Nick Bosa led the league in sacks and is just spearheading the league's best defense. So I think it's an obvious one.
Yeah, I do think that Judon deserves an honorable mention, though, because his performance was a game changer for the Patriots all season long. Yeah. Without Judon, it would not have been so pretty.
No, Judon is, I'm very thankful for Matthew Judon because as much as the Patriots offense and Matt Patricia stressed me out all year, the defense is one thing we could mostly hang our hat on, and it looked pretty good. And Judon was at the very core of that. Him and Josh Uche, more or less his apprentice, just constant sacks. It was very fun to watch.
Yeah, I had anxiety when he left Baltimore, so you're welcome.
I'm very, very happy he left Baltimore. Thank God. AP Coach of the Year.
Nathaniel Hackett, right?
I mean, obviously, I think he didn't even have to finish the season. That was how good he was. They were like, dude,
phenomenal.
You're so good. Like you did in 15 games, what everybody else did in 17. Like, no, absolutely not. Good God, please hire Sean Payton, Denver. I'm begging.
Was it you who said we only brought Hackett in to bring Aaron Rodgers here, and you failed at that?
Yeah, like
I think that was you.
that was it felt like when they brought him in and then Rodgers didn't come, they were just like, oh,
shit.
Oh no.
What did we do?
This guy can't coach anybody else. And that was before we knew Russell Wilson was going to be this bad this year. So it didn't go well with Nathaniel Hackett, but actual coach of the year picks, finally some differentiation here. And there will be for the rest of these awards. Maddie, who's your pick for coach of the year?
I have to go Doug Peterson. I mean, Jags finished 3-14 last year. Now they make it to the divisional rounds. They're 9-8 in regular season. They finished on top of the AFC South. Who would have guessed? Who would have guessed? No one. I think Doug Peterson has he's turned this team around, but on the other hand, I feel like he has single-handedly rescued Trevor Lawrence. I feel like Trevor Lawrence was drowning in the middle of the ocean, and Doug Peterson just threw a little floaty out and said, come here, let me take care of you. We're going to nurture you, build you back up. And that's what he did the beginning of the season. It was very almost like college level play. They used some of his play from his time at Clemson, like literal plays from Clemson, integrated that in and just kind of built him up the way you should get behind a franchise quarterback, a rookie franchise quarterback. So I feel like all the work that he did with Trevor, everything leading up to turning this team around, I feel like he's a shoe-in for coach of the year.
Yeah, I'm not upset with that pick at all. My preseason pick for coach of the year actually was Nick Sirianni. So it might seem odd that I don't pick him here after the season that they have. They sit here as the 1 seed and are heading to the NFC Championship game. My pick, though, is going to be Kyle Shanahan because throughout the season, Kyle Shanahan dealt with much more adversity than Nick Sirianni did. And for as much as we talk every week about how Shanahan has this system of all these weapons that any quarterback can step into and be successful, I think we need to give him some flowers for creating that system. Yeah. So that's why I'm going with Kyle Shanahan. I want to give credit still to Brock Purdy and not make this sound like it's all Shanahan. I mean, we've complimented Purdy throughout the podcast and throughout the past few weeks that he is a legit guy, and the poise that he's shown has elevated this offense as much as anything else. But Shanahan, the fact that he's created the system where a 7th-round rookie can come in and be comfortable and have time to make these decisions and, rely on other guys when he needs to. It's just the fact that they are 2nd seed in the NFC after going through 3 different quarterbacks this year, one of them being a 7th-round rookie. I want to give Shanny some credit. I don't know that he's won coach of the year before. I should have looked that up before. But if he hasn't, it's definitely time to give him some credit. If he has, I don't know. This might just be his most masterful.
I don't remember him.
His most masterful coaching job that he's had so far. So that's why I'm going with him.
Adding on to your argument or your ploy, I guess I should say, the fact that they went out and got CMC, that was huge for that offense. And then not only that, but taking you back to the beginning of the season, after all the offseason drama with Debo and all of his incentives and everything, he really had to get creative and rework his offense. And he had to do it over and over again. So I like that pick. I think that's a good pick too.
Yeah. And can confirm Shanahan has not won coach of the year. The last few years has been Mike Vrabel, Kevin Stefanski, John Harbaugh, Matt Nagy, Sean McVay, Jason Garrett, and so on. Jason Garrett, wow. And so on. Has not won coach of the year. Would love to see him get one, but again, not mad at Peterson. Would love to see Dayball win it as well. Nick Sirianni, another good candidate, but these are who we're going with. Next, AP Comeback Player of the Year. Ooh. Maddie, you're going to have to eat your words here because I know this was not a guy you expected to be here and a guy that you were kind of pushing against. We've talked about it on the pod before as well. Who's your pick for Comeback Player of the Year?
I even switched it up because I was gonna be sneaky and try to take it out, but I got to give this guy his flowers. Saquon Barkley. I mean, he finished 4th overall in the league in regular season. He had 1,312 rushing yards in 16 games, and there was only one player who played 16 games that finished ahead of him, and that was Derrick Henry. So Saquon came back. He was the center, the heartbeat of this offense most of the season. And honestly, props to whoever tweeted out that picture of him the beginning of the season where he looked yoked. Ever since then, I've kind of had my eye on him since then. But yeah, I kind of had to eat my words there.
Yeah.
My backup option was going to be CMC, but I feel like Saquon was more of a centerpiece to that offense, and that's why I eventually went with Saquon.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Saquon had a lot to prove coming into this year and sufficiently proved it. Again, another one that I'm not mad at the pick and will be happy to see him win it. And my pick is kind of it shows how you can interpret comeback player of the year differently, and people have in the past. You look at the award winners and they've come back from different things. My pick basically came back from the dead, which is Geno Smith. He was not hurt.
Resurrected.
He just came back from essentially 9 years of being either bad or on the bench. Like his years with the Jets were terrible, and then he was a backup for a very long time.
He came back from the New York curse.
Right, which is honestly more impressive than almost anything else you can do. So Geno, he comes back from all that, goes for 30 touchdowns. I believe it was 11 interceptions. Like statistically, a top 5 quarterback in the NFL this year, which is insane. So I'm going with Geno. I think it's no surprise that our 2 picks are guys that kind of led their teams to the playoffs when they weren't supposed to.
Great pick, by the way.
Geno was the big one, right? Like we came in, I thought Drew Lock would be the starter. A lot of people did. And Geno comes in and is like, I'm literally going to be statistically better than Russell Wilson. Sound good? Seahawks fans are like, sounds good. So I'm going Geno for comeback player of the year. The big 3 of this award, the contenders are like all the guys we mentioned: Geno, Saquon, CMC. We'd be shocked to see anyone else win that. Now we've got the big one, MVP. And I'm sure you have noticed based on this list, have gone back on the man I've been supporting all year.
I looked at this list and I was like, Brandon, come on.
I'm upset with myself. I won't lie to you. I'm upset with myself.
Brandon's being a basic bitch over here.
We have both been touting Jalen Hurts all season, and I still am. I still love Jalen Hurts, but he's not my pick for MVP. Maddie, why is he your pick for MVP?
Okay, Jalen Hurts is my pick for MVP because what happened when Jalen Hurts was unable to play this season? They fell apart. They just did. The offense was actually built around Jalen Hurts. They literally brought in Uncle Brian Johnson, who is a childhood, I guess, mentor to Jalen Hurts, to work with Jalen Hurts. They built this offense around this kid. And when he was gone, you noticed it. Not only that, but like on the field, great. You can't argue with it. But off the field, the leadership he brings to this team, it's unlike anything that we've seen. And I think that that's what Nicky Boy was trying to get to when he pissed everybody off with the MJ comment. Mm-hmm. But it's just the way he leads the team. And not only just the team, but the community as well. He's created a ton of programs there. And I just kind of feel like he's so well respected in Philly. It's unmatched. On the counterpoint to who you're going to choose, you have a backup quarterback come in and probably they still would have won that game regardless of what quarterback was playing. And I can honestly say if Minshew was in, that wouldn't have been the case for Philly.
Yeah, I will sadly admit my pick for MVP is Patrick Mahomes. It is basic. I will not lie. So here's the thing. When I knew that we were going to be doing these awards, I was like, all right, I'm probably going Jalen Hurts as MVP and started going through everything in my head. And then just for my own due diligence, I was looking through statistically and everything else. And Mahomes is just so far above Jalen in everything statistically that I couldn't in good conscience pick Jalen. As much as Jalen has the better story, and I do totally agree with you that team falls apart without him, and that makes him as valuable as anybody else can be. Total touchdowns this year. Jalen has accounted for, I believe it was 39, 26 passing, 13 rushing, which is crazy. 39 touchdowns. Mahomes, 45 touchdowns. So still good chunk more. Mahomes, 5,000.
Mahomes also played throughout the entire season.
This is true. That is a good point. That is a good point. Mahomes sits at the top of the league in passing yards by 800 yards over the next closest player, that being Joe Burrow, 5,250 to 4,475.
Just a measly 800 yards.
Just a measly 800 yards. You know, I mean, what didn't he throw for that in that one game against Oklahoma in college? It's really not a big deal. So, you know, he's just, I don't want to let myself get like the fan version of voter fatigue where it's like, it's Patrick Mahomes. You don't want to pick him because he's Patrick Mahomes. I look at his numbers and I'm just like, man, if I have to pick a quarterback to lead my team, I'm picking Mahomes. If I have to pick a quarterback who his absence will affect his team the most, as much as Jalen is up there, like you put a full season of Chad Henne on this Chiefs team.
Would it be pretty impressive?
I don't know. I don't know what that drive was. I don't know what possessed him for that one drive. Maybe it was just angry revenge on the Jags for all that he went through there when he was with the Jags. But I just think they'd be in shambles without Patrick Mahomes. And I think he showed that he's still the best player in football. And as much
He
as I
does
want,
crazy things. He
yeah,
just does. You
as
can't ever
much
count him out.
as much as I want Jalen to get it, because I feel like this is, again, his best year to get it. Not that I think he'll decline after this year, but just that the narrative of this year lends itself so much to him having that behind him. I don't know. I had to go with Mahomes. It hurts my soul. It really does.
As much as I made fun of you for that, I like that you brought that up because it really shows for these awards, it all depends on the people voting, how they perceive what
Yeah.
the award is. Do they perceive it in statistics? Do they perceive it as in off the field, leadership roles, things like that? What factors are they looking at to make these decisions?
Right.
So I'm glad that you brought that up because I think that it showed a side of both.
Yeah, and I think
very
the
real.
way the award is interpreted is almost intentionally vague. I think there's a reason they don't
Mhm.
fully define it, because you've got people that it's like, okay, are we picking the guy who's most valuable to their own team, or are we picking the guy who's most valuable in a vacuum, like would be valuable to any team? And those are different answers. It's the same reason that I remember years back when Peyton Manning had the neck injury and missed the season for the Colts. They were like, I'm going to vote Peyton Manning for MVP because the one year he didn't play, they were terrible. And I'm like, I can't argue with you fully.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell? But you also can't do that. So, it's interesting that they make it vague like that. Maddie, I see you added one more sort of award here that I did not feel the need to add to because I think your pick was perfect. So go ahead.
Best moment of the year. I guess we both chose then. Week 18 is when the Bills honored DeMar Hamlin with an open kickoff touchdown return.
Yes.
I mean,
stressed me out as an objective fan, as a Patriots fan, but I mean, no better really goosebumps moment, right? I mean,
goosebumps, exactly, across the nation.
Yeah, I mean, that was perfect. So I agree with you. There was nothing I could even remotely think of that would be as emotionally charged or as cool of a moment as that. So we will leave it there.
And I will be in Phoenix for NFL honors. So
oh, really?
I'm excited to see who gets these awards in person.
Yeah, I'm excited too, man. All right. So you'll be able to be proven right or wrong right there in person. That'll be great. All right. Finishing up here with our viewer questions as we usually do. This one makes me laugh. Is Dak just Kirk Cousins? This is from Brian David Ball. I think it's very funny that Kirk Cousins has become kind of the gold standard for, like, you're pretty good and you have moments where you're great, but ultimately you fall back down to earth when it matters most. And if not just down to earth, like below earth, and you suck. So is Dak just Kirk Cousins? Maddie, what do you think?
I think that Dak is a little bit higher up than Kirk Cousins, but I do think that he has that same almost, when it's bad, it's bad. And when it's good, it's like, it's good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that they have that same kind of like elevator span, but I think that Dak is a little bit, he's on a different level than Kirk Cousins. Not a little bit. He's just on a different level.
I agree. I want Dak to hopefully have sort of a comeback season next year, because this year was, again, uncharacteristically really bad for him with the turnovers and such. But in general, I think Dak has it in him to be much better than Kirk Cousins. So I'm not going to ascribe that to him. I'll spare him of being one of the many variations of Kirk Cousins. You got eyeliner Kirk Cousins, which is Derek Carr. You got handsome Kirk Cousins, which is Jimmy G. You have Mac Jones, who's basically just Kirk Cousins, but younger. So I'll spare Dak for now. Our next question: if Joe Burrow beats Patrick Mahomes for the fourth time and wins the Super Bowl, is he the better QB than Patrick Mahomes? Do we start having the conversation that Burrow's the best quarterback in the league? Now, again, maybe we don't base this strictly on the game result, but if he outplays him to a degree that almost negates the ankle injury, because that one's going to be tough as well to objectively judge this, right? Like, but if Burrow comes out and is just supersonic, blows them out, or at least puts up a bunch of points and just doesn't blink, do we start thinking of him as maybe the best quarterback in the league?
I think you start considering it, but at the same time, Joe is in a lot more of a cush situation than Patrick Mahomes is. He's got two receivers who, I mean, pick your poison. Then you have Joe Mixon. And then on top of that, resurrected himself is our RB2. And so I just feel like Joe Burrow has so many weapons around him that's almost not comparable, because as much as you want to try to hype up the Chiefs, they have Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
That's about it. And then you have Patrick Mahomes. So I feel like I don't know that we can really have that conversation yet, but I think this is a relative question. Who's a better quarterback? I think it goes off of what you value and what you're looking at.
I think for the first time, it becomes a conversation. Like, I don't think We all knew Burrow was, bordering on top 5 coming into this year, if not already within it. I think this season and now this past game against the Bills, and depending on what he does against the Chiefs, it's the first time we give him true consideration as being the top quarterback, and it's not just unanimously Mahomes. That's what I'll say. It becomes a little bit more of an argument. So we'll see how it plays out, but I'm excited that we have, a debate here. It's fun.
It is exciting.
We don't just have Mahomes running the table anymore.
The AFC is supporting these young quarterbacks, so it's going to be fun football for years to come.
I know. And again, as a Patriots fan, it makes me sad because it makes our conference very difficult. So our final question comes Patriots related as well. As a Pats fan, would you rather have D-Hop on a longish term deal or Jordan Addison / Jackson Smith-Njigba or Johnston if one of them falls to us? So this was an interesting question just to me as a Patriots fan to consider, because I haven't thought too much about the draft yet and such. My answer, you ever see that old tortilla commercial, I think it was, with the little girl where she's like, ¿Por qué no los dos? Why can't we have both? Yes. That's how I feel. I mean, our receivers very much have room for 2 guys. The rookie isn't going to cost anything beyond a draft pick. So if one falls to us, take him, and we can get Hopkins for cheap, cheap in terms of cap. I don't know what the trade would cost, but in cap related terms, yeah, let's get both of them. I mean, what are we doing?
Brandon says, give me my cake. I'm going to eat it too.
Am I crazy here? Mac Jones needs help in the form of D-Hop and a young first-round rookie wide receiver.
And anyone but Matt Patricia.
Yeah, things would look drastically different next year. Thankfully, there was a report that came out officially today that Matt Patricia is expected to be let go.
I didn't see that, but thank God.
They're leaning that way. My worry wasn't that they were going to keep him on as OC. I was fairly certain that ship had sailed. My worry was that they were going to demote him and keep him in the building. And I was like, don't do that. Get him out. He is toxic.
Haven't we been waiting on this since week 10?
Yes, exactly. So it was nice to get some relatively official confirmation. But yeah, let's go get D-Hop and let's go get a receiver in the draft, and let's see how we can make Mac look. Can we ascend Mac beyond baby Kirk Cousins tier? That's what I want. I want him to no longer be baby Kirk Cousins. I want him to be rookie Mac Jones, who looked like he had the chance to be the next, not Brady, but a top 10 type guy. We don't need more Kirk. We just don't. We have enough variations of Kirk as it is. Maddie, that's all I have for today. Do you have anything left for the people before we head into championship weekend?
That's all I've got. If you guys like my Joe Shiesty shirt, Joey franchise, head over to heavysports.com. Actually, It's on our link tree. Go to our link tree.
Yes. The same place you may have gone to listen to the podcast for the first time, or maybe every time. I don't know how you get to this point, but whatever you guys, if you've ever seen the link tree, head there.
Yeah, and it's not just Cincinnati. We have all sorts of teams, and they're actually funny shirts. There's stuff that's borderline inappropriate, but absolutely hilarious. That's our mojo, I feel like.
Yeah, I would agree.
That might be our mission statement. I don't know. Yeah, I'm probably going to get fired for saying that.
Bordering on ridiculous at all times is pretty much how we work. So, all right. Everybody, enjoy championship weekend. We have some great matchups, and I'm very excited to see who ends up in the Super Bowl. And we will have your Super Bowl / Pro Bowl preview next week. And oh boy, we're getting down towards the end. But for Maddie Kroll, I am Brandon Carney. This has been Off the Bench. We'll see you guys next week.